Star Wars, best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, a UK-based Star Wars podcast with in-depth discussions and analysis, always sprinkled with some silliness. I am the Geordie Jedi Pete.
And I'm Jason Hondo Ling.
And I'm Kat Riesiauke.
We are back with our brand new episode of Star Wars. We've got some very interesting news topics to talk about today, but we're just going to start off with something quite sad. Robert Watts passed away at the age of 86. Lucasfilm said they were deeply saddened to learn of the passing of Robert. The producer was intimately involved in the making of half a dozen Lucasfilm classics, including the original Star Wars and Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade, a lot of other projects in between, not just Lucasfilm but other places as well. And I think we were talking about it before we came on air, Jason, weren't we, that Robert Watts is someone who, you know, if you're in-depth Star Wars fans and you watch sort of the documentaries about the making of particularly the original trilogy, but also some of the documentaries on Indiana Jones, you know, he's a guy who was always there and got cool stories. And if you ever met Robert on the convention circuit, he was always telling really cool stories about the making of Star Wars and how it all came together. Sort of, what's your thoughts on, obviously, you know, 86 and had a fantastic career. You know, it's always sad when someone passes away, but you know, he really has left his mark on the world, you could say. You know, it's a privilege that we get to watch his work whenever we rewatch Star Wars.
Yeah, no, I can only echo that as we were discussing. Seeing the documentaries, which I watch over and over again, Robert always had some interesting stories, especially about how it was almost guerrilla filmmaking at the early days and how, you know, he was very much a go-between between different people. So he saw very different aspect of Star Wars than a lot of people. So I am glad that obviously that's the one thing we're lucky with Star Wars is there's a lot of documentaries that have been made, so that, those stories are documented. And yeah, he's a character that will obviously be missed from a lot of that. But as you say, 86, and I know he's not been well for a while, so it was sad, but at the same time, the legacy that he's left behind, you know, is immense, really. So it's really something that at least we can carry on and enjoy what he left behind.
It certainly is. I think because of these documentaries, you know, and the work he's done in the convention circuit since, you know, I think that Star Wars phrase of nobody's ever really gone, I think, you know, we can always go back and watch that and see just what an impact he had. And obviously Star Wars and, you know, a lot of his other movies are going to be around forever. And, you know, his stamps all over those. Moving on from that, let's dive into the news. Speaking of Indiana Jones, obviously, as I said, Robert Watts was producer on Indiana Jones: Last Crusade. The first 4 Indiana Jones films sort of vanished off Disney Plus this past week. Sort of no announcement. Dial of Destiny, number 5, is still on there. And again, it's sort of, for me, when I thought about getting Disney Plus, it was like, oh, well, everything ever will be on there for us to consume whenever we need it. But it seems to, you know, we've seen Willow get taken off there. Just because they wanted to, I suppose. You know, they own it. So I suppose my first question is to you, Kat. How do you feel when these things are getting taken off for no apparent reason? And I suppose the big question is, you know, are we going back to a world where physical media is king?
Well, I would think that we will never leave a world where physical media is king because I adore having a physical copy because of the bonus features, director's cuts, or the commentary that you get on the bonus discs for many digital and for many physical copies of these digital films. But every time this happens, especially when it's not announced and it's not explained to us, the consumer, it damages my trust in these streaming services, because you go from thinking everything I've ever wanted to watch is on this streaming service to then wondering, well, how long is my favorite movie going to be on this platform? How long is my favorite TV show going to be here? Are they just going to vanish overnight for no apparent reason? What am I paying for if what I want to watch isn't there when I want to watch it? And that's something that streaming services should be very wary of, because as consumers, we buy into these subscriptions for Disney Plus, for any streaming platform, with the knowledge that what we want to watch is on this digital platform whenever we want to see something, and on any device we want to watch something on. But as soon as they start removing things, that goes. And as a consumer, you think, well, my money could be better spent elsewhere. My money could go into the physical copies that I own and I know will never go anywhere unless I want to part with them. So the removal of these Indiana Jones films is quite strange. I don't know if there was a licensing disagreement between Disney and one of the other production partners for the films, but they should have announced that. They should have said, well, this is leaving Disney Plus due to X, Y, or Z. To just remove it overnight without giving cause is just suspicious, and it's strange, and it shakes that trust. So whenever I like a series or enjoy a film on Disney Plus or any streaming platform, I will endeavor to get the hard copies of it. In fact, I was just out today buying hard copies of Castlevania, which is one of my favorite anime productions on Netflix, because in the back of my mind, I question whether that show will always be there, or if I should be proactive and have that physical edition so I can always enjoy it at my own leisure.
Definitely. And I think, when I look at things like Amazon Prime and Netflix, when they've got, shows that they haven't produced themselves, but shows that obviously acquired the licensing agreement to a show, they tend to have like a countdown on it, tells you when it's going to leave, especially when it's coming up soon. What really worries me here is that like Disney owns Lucasfilm, so Lucasfilm along with Marvel Studios are probably two of the biggest parts of Disney Plus, right? And then here they are sort of axing their own product, which is just very strange. Jason, any thoughts on the vanishing of Indiana Jones 1 through 4 and your thoughts on physical media being king?
Yeah, I think it's down to the arrogance of how Disney Plus is run at times, because they think, because who they are, like you say, Amazon and Netflix, their programs, you get a rundown, you know when they're going to take them off. Disney have never implemented that, and I think it's a case of they just think, people are just going to accept we've got it here for a while. We're bringing out new material. If it disappears, it disappears, which is wrong because, as you say, you sort of buy into this service expecting the stuff to be there, and that's what they got to remember. It's a service they're providing. It's not a product, so to speak. So I think that's partly what's goes on with Disney in this case. Obviously, the one thing that I would say, I think it looks like, obviously, the problem with especially Indiana Jones is um, there's a very different partnership with Lucasfilm because it was originally done with Paramount, and obviously Paramount have their own streaming service. So I know there has been the suggestion that maybe the deal was that Disney would have it for a certain amount of time, and then that would then go over to Paramount for a certain amount of time, which is fine, and I get that. But like we've just said, or like you guys have just said, at least give the consumer a chance to know that that's going to disappear. And that is, as I said, I think that's the arrogance of Disney, that they just think, well, it's just the way of the world, we've got all these deals going on. We can't necessarily deal with that, which is wrong. But in the long run, I agree that physical media, I've had the Indiana Jones collection, the box set, for years on DVD, and like Kat says, the thing with those DVDs where you always got the documentaries that we were discussing earlier. And that is the big bonus of having the physical media, is you've got it there. It's not going anywhere. I have to admit, Disney Plus is one of the only sort of ones that I tend to go with. I gave up with Netflix. I was finding I wasn't using it as much. Amazon Prime I use, but all of the others, you've got HBO Max, Apple TV. There's all these ones out there that it's great, but I think they're beginning to oversaturate the market, because with the price points, like you say, why pay £10, £15 a month per thing when once a month you can buy yourself a decent box set? So yeah, it's I for that reason, I think the only reason physical media would start to disappear and stop production is purely down to the greed of the studios.
Definitely. I think for me, from age sort of 12 to having my first paper round, I would use that money to buy DVDs and then Blu-rays, So from age 12 to sort of my late 20s, had a lot of physical media. Um, I've still got a lot of my Blu-rays. I give a lot of the DVDs away, just with sort of life and moving on. But this has made me think, one of the key reasons I have Disney Plus is because it is the home of Lucasfilm, so I expect everything Lucasfilm do to be on there. But with what happened with Willow before, the new Willow project got taken
Yeah.
off for no reason. They made it, and then it's making me think. Do I go out and look for those limited edition steel books and support it that way? And I think I'm going to. Moving on from physical media, October 3rd, so just a couple of days ago, was the 10-year anniversary of the debut of Star Wars Rebels. Obviously, Star Wars Rebels has gone on to influence so much Star Wars storytelling, especially the latest Ahsoka series and sort of what we're doing with this Heir to the Empire storyline in between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. We'll just go to you first, Kat. Just what's your thoughts on Star Wars Rebels being 10 years old? Does it make you feel old? And obviously, just what's some of your favourite parts of Star Wars Rebels?
Gosh, I can't believe it's been 10 years. It really doesn't feel like that. It feels like only yesterday I was tuning in every Saturday morning to watch Star Wars Rebels Season 3 here in the UK. And to think that the first season aired 10 years ago is it's just insane. It still remains some of my favourite Star Wars storytelling. And there are so many arcs in Rebels that I absolutely loved. There were never any filler episodes. The Purgles were important, and it introduced this beautiful found family that we journeyed with through their growth, through their trials and tribulations, and the seasons delivered amazing, joyous moments, and they absolutely broke our hearts. You can't tell me that Rebels is a kids' show, because some of those episodes, oh my gosh, the things they did to me as an adult, they had me crying. But the storytelling of Rebels and the legacy it's left on, the storytelling we're getting now with Ahsoka, with the Mandalorian, it's so wonderful to see how important Rebels is to the canon right now. And I think out of all the episodes, if I was to pick a favourite, it would be the honourable ones between Gary Zebarelius and Agent Callas.
Hot colours. I think you made a really good point there when you're talking about, obviously it's a children's animated series, but I think there's two things. I mean, one in sort of what the show depicts was quite adult, especially there's times when the Inquisitors are sort of beheading people in front of talking and like Imperial officers, and when you see that, obviously it's done a certain way where it's not graphic, but it's very clear what's going on, and it definitely led to it feeling like a show that had big stakes. And then if you look at the emotional side as well, if you look at bringing back Ahsoka and having Ahsoka and Vader face off and dealing with that Anakin and Ahsoka relationship, how it built new relationships that we cared about. If you look at Kanan and Ezra, and obviously Kanan's relationship with the rest of the Ghost Crew, in particular Hera, and then we see obviously, Jedi Knight, Kanan making the ultimate sacrifice, and then Ezra in turn, the ultimate sacrifice at the end to save everybody. I'm probably missing a lot of stuff out there as well. We saw the return of Admiral Palpatine. We saw again, we don't really know much about them, but these people within the Imperial ranks who are almost like Sith bishops. A lot going on, and certainly deep Star Wars lore, deep Star Wars emotion, and big stakes, all in this kids animated TV series. You could say, that's the wrapper, and you open it up, and then everything I just said is what you get inside of that wrapper, which is absolutely fantastic. I remember coming out of Rebels slightly late, so I heard about Rebels and then bought season 1 because it was already done and watched it all. And then I think from season 2 onwards is when I was watching it every week. And I remember being a Star Wars celebration, London in 2016, the one before Rogue One came out, in the Star Wars Rebels panel for season 3, and we got the throne reveal and just how crazy that was. It was absolutely wonderful and fantastic. Jason, I know you have big love for Star Wars Rebels. Again, it's 10 years old. Does it make you feel old? And just what's some of your favourite parts of Star Wars Rebels?
At the grand old age of 44, everything makes me feel old. But yeah, Rebels, as you know, holds a really, really big place in my heart. I love the series. It helped me fall more back in love with Star Wars. Obviously, I've been a fan of the Clone Wars. Was disappointed when that ended, and then Rebels came along, and I can remember thinking this is going to be a kids show, and I can remember tuning in for that first episode. We had XD, so we got the extended episode with Vader opening it and everything, and I can remember sitting down with Lila, my eldest, and watching it, and for me it was her introduction to Star Wars, and it was a really good way to introduce her to the world of Star Wars. We had these brilliant characters that I think Dave Filoni and the team, as Kat said, they were a family, and it was a story that was linked to the main story but also had its very own arc, which obviously is now continuing in the new media, and yeah, I just love it. And anyone who says that Disney ruined Star Wars has to reflect on the fact that they did bring us Rebels, and I think for me that was something that is really, really great. The characters were brilliant, the animation was top notch, and still stands up to date. And I regularly rewatch Rebels, and as Kat said, there weren't filler episodes; they all linked into the story. So yeah, it's and also they gave us Chopper. We had another droid with attitude, and that's got to be a bonus. But yeah, I just when I saw it was 10 years old, I thought, crikey. To me, it does feel a little bit longer because obviously we've had Bad Batch since. We've had The Mandalorian, big time, capturing everyone's imagination. But all of that really stems from Disney finding their way with Star Wars, in particular, I think, with Rebels. Um, and obviously, that's starting to show now with more and more of the media linking back to Rebels.
Definitely. And then something that I didn't talk about when I was talking about Rebels, but even things that to this day we still haven't had like full clarity on. So you look at the Bendu and that type of in between force entity. We don't really know what he is or what he does. Is he still around? But like just the questions around that, and it was able to bring sort of more mythical ethos into Star Wars as well. Obviously, a lot of this main story points got answered and developed and still is now, but that it brought in some things like that, really whimsical, like lore that is just really exciting, really gets my brain going. Um, quick question on Rebels before we move on. Kat, we'll go to you first. Just obviously, where do you want to see and where do you think we're going to see Star Wars Rebels influence next? Obviously, it could be the Ahsoka series too, I suppose.
I definitely think that Rebels will continue to inspire the next series of Ahsoka. And I think whatever next Tales of series we get, I think there will probably be links to Rebels with that, because both Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire had overtones to both the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. I think it's very difficult in the current canon to really look at a story and say what hasn't been inspired or directly related to previous storytelling, because that's basically how the canon is meant to work.
Definitely. Jason, over to you. I think my question to you is obviously, we know Ahsoka season 2, and Kat's obviously spoken nicely about that there. Obviously, we do have The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is the next Star Wars movie that's going to hit the big screen, which is obviously going to follow on The Mandalorian's adventures from his TV series. We do know we're going to get Zeb Orrelios in that series. Maybe it's also going to tie into this Heir to the Empire arc with Thrawn. So, just what's your thoughts on how Star Wars Rebels can influence that movie and sort of and still bring us some of these awesome characters from Rebels to the big screen again?
Yeah, I definitely think obviously Zeb has already been introduced in The Mandalorian, which I was really pleased with. And I think now, with the way that Ahsoka season 1 ended, with Thrawn coming back, the way the timeline's working, I would assume that the storyline of The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to be affected quite heavily by the reappearance of Thrawn. And obviously, we know from what was going on with Gideon that the New Order is very much building the way up. So this is, for me, I think will be linked quite heavily. And I'm hoping, I've got a feeling Ezra's going to appear in the film. And I think maybe even Hera will appear. So I think we're going to have Rebels very much coming into The Mandalorian. Obviously, we've got Bo-Katan as well, who's been in a big part of Mandalorian. She started off in Clone Wars, but a lot of Bo-Katan's story also played out in Rebels with Sabine. So there's so many links. As Kat said, canon is working. As much as people hate some of it, but I love the way that Rebels has crafted quite a lot of the story that we're seeing, and yeah, it's got to lead into Mandalorian and Grogu, I think.
It certainly does. Moving on from Rebels, and I know me and you, Jason's probably spoke about this last episode, but we'd love to hear what Cal has to say. But Hugh McGregor has again been talking. He's at a Comic Con, I believe, in America. He's talking about the fact that been sort of discussing what a next series of Kenobi could be, like a new limited series featuring him as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Kat, what's your thoughts when you hear that? Ewan's obviously very vocal about wanting to do something, providing the stories there. Sort of does it make you feel excited? And where do you think a new Kenobi story could go?
It does get me excited because it's always wonderful to see actors being passionate about returning to these projects, because it shows that they care, it shows that they enjoy the storytelling that they are a part of. And Obi-Wan is such an iconic character. Who doesn't want more Obi-Wan Kenobi stories? And my hope would actually be to go back in time a little, and I would love to see just a limited series, like one season of Kenobi, which is set during the Clone Wars. So he's off on some kind of mission with, I don't know, Commander Cody, and it's got Ewan McGregor then in the iconic Clone Wars armor costume, because that would be amazing to see in live action. We've had the flashback with Hayden as Clone Wars Anakin, and it would be amazing to see Ewan McGregor then as Clone Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It certainly would be. I think that's what's so good about the first season of Kenobi, this limited series of Kenobi, sort of told that story of him sort of finding the light again and coming face to face with Darth Vader, having that battle that's mentioned in A New Hope, and then him also sort of watching over Luke Skywalker. But that story was tied up in a nice little bow, and I don't think we need to revisit Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. But there's so many stories that we could go to the past that we could do, or adventures you could have after that. But I think what you've said there would absolutely be fantastic. And again, as you said, we've had Hayden in Clone Wars Anakin, and they get Ewan in Clone Wars Anakin. That would be the top of the mountain, as they say. Jason, any closing? I know we spoke about it in depth last week, but just again, what's your thoughts? Ewan's still pursuing it, I suppose. So he's obviously trying to make something happen. It seems he's banging the drum.
Yeah, obviously, you and I discussed our concerns of what would it be. Kat actually has picked on something that I hadn't even thought of, which could be extremely exciting, because you'll also give Hayden the opportunity of maybe reprising the role of Anakin, in a way that we'd get to see, that dynamic with him and Obi-Wan. I think now with Hayden as a more mature actor, the performance would be, really interesting. So, I like that idea, Kat. So I think I would probably want to see him go that way. It would also be a very action-led series. Less, it could be a Clone Wars spin-off in itself, but there's so many different things that they could do. They need to do it whilst Ewan and Hayden can still pull it off, which they've already proved they can. So yeah, I'd like to see it happen. It needs to happen soon, I think, if they're going to do it. It's not something they can wait another 10 years and then say, oh, we'll do something. By that time, it's going to be too late. And that's why my heart tells me that possibly it won't happen, because there's so many different things in play at the moment. But it's always exciting, as Kat said. You've got the likes of Ewan, who's passionate about his character. You've got Katie Sackhoff, who's passionate about Bo-Katan. You've got Tem, who's really passionate about Boba, and I'd love to see him do more, because I feel I liked the Book of Boba Fett, but I don't think it truly gave him a chance to shine. And again, Hayden's got a refined love, I think, of the character, which would be great to see him get a chance. So I think it'd be interesting. The other thing is, Ewan McGregor has got a little bit of gravitas that he can maybe bring to persuade the Disney big guns. So that is one thing that is a big positive for him. But there's so many things that could happen. But no, I do like Kat's idea there.
And speaking of more characters, especially younger version of characters wanting to come back, obviously Donald Glover's been talking, about still working on sort of a Lando series. Now this was mentioned, years ago now with someone else writing, but it was very much sort of a, develop an idea type of thing, and that's no longer the case. But Donald Glover, who's currently actually just cancelled all of his Childish Gambino, rest of his US and European legs. Childish Gambino is obviously Donald Glover's sort of music alter ego. He is recovering. He's looking for surgery and will be recovering. So we wish Donald Glover all of the best. But maybe it's going to give him a lot of time while he's recovering from said surgery to, again, further develop what he wants this Lando series to be. Kat, we'll go to you. Obviously, Lando series we mentioned in the past officially by Lucasfilm is something that they were looking to develop. Obviously, those people they mentioned are no longer sort of working on it. How do you feel about Donald Glover taking the lead in developing a series, and do you think we'll actually see something in the next 5 to 6 years?
Well, how many things have been officially announced and have not come to fruition or just been very silently cancelled. It's really difficult because Lucasfilm and Disney have made choices to announce things without developmental plans in place, which has been a nightmare, really, both for them and for the fans, because they've set up a lot of false promises and this idea that stories are coming and they haven't, and possibly never will. And it's disappointing because when something is announced, you kind of expect it to happen, especially from a production company such as Lucasfilm and Disney. They know what they're doing. But Donald Glover is a great writer. He has written series in the past. He knows how to write television. If he wants to write a Lando series, then I think he'd be very good at it, especially collaborating with the Lucasfilm Story Group. And there's so much because his character hasn't really been explored, especially in his younger years. We've had comics surrounding Lando a bit closer to the original trilogy that has explored his character in quite some depth. But in those younger years, same around about the same age as Han, when Solo a Star Wars story is set, there isn't much. So it would be great to see that character return and be more fully fleshed out to understand Lando's crazy adventures a bit more. But again, that trust has just been really shaken by Disney because they keep making announcements of series that never happen. They keep cancelling series that should definitely be getting extra seasons. So I don't know. I think I've just reached a point where until there's actually a trailer, I don't expect anything to happen these days.
I know exactly what you mean. To be fair, it's weird. So obviously this was like announced years ago with like a certain people involved looking to develop it, and then like they've left and it's died a death. But then like over the past few months, Donald Glover's then been talking about it, and then that's what's kept it alive in sort of the public domain. If that makes sense. Um, so yes, will it happen? Will it not? We do not know. Jason, are you excited? Do you want Donald Glover to be this heavily involved and pushing for Orlando series? And are you going to watch it if we do get it?
I think I've voiced on here before my concerns always of an actor writing for a series of a character, but as Kat said, Donald Glover is a very clever and skilled writer. So I wouldn't be fearful with that. I do really get fed up with Disney and Lucasfilm's habit of announcing stuff and not following it through. Like Kat says, leave it till you give us a trailer. There's going to be gossip about stuff going on. Let the gossip go on, and then just give us a trailer, deliver the goods. Don't give us false hope, because that is, I think the fans are getting really, really annoyed with that. You know, we had Rogue Squadron, which never happened. We keep getting teased that it could happen, but I don't think it will. And again, this Lando series, I'd love to see it. I think I've said in the past, I'd love to see it done quite quickly so that Billy D could, maybe bookend episodes and have some sort of involvement, because there's still that opportunity. But I just wish they just shut up talking about it and do it. And it's a thing that I think it's a lot to do with social media and all the different media outlets now that they're looking for stories. And Disney and Lucasfilm, to a certain degree, have fed them with the stories by making these announcements. And like Kat said, not having a proper plan in place, talking about it, and then not going through. And I get that, there are millions and millions of films that have gone into development hell, that have worked in the background, and you'll find out about them over time and leaks come out. But for a studio like Lucasfilm to have so many series and films that have gone into development hell that everyone's known about, and there's been official announcements about, that that just it leaves them with egg on their face that they didn't necessarily need. They're creating their own pain. I understand that it is a complicated industry and there's a lot of factors that we don't see. But in that case, don't make the announcement until you've got it in the bag. And I'd like to see them start learning from that, but they seem to keep announcing stuff and then it not happening. It's just frustrating for us as fans, and it must be frustrating for the people involved as well. Again, false hope is a horrible thing. So it's something that I don't think we'll ever get away from. But if Donald Glover can actually work his magic and get it to happen, then a Lando series would be great. He's a character that has got so many layers. I think it could be really interesting.
It certainly could be. And someone who's I'm a big fan of his show, Atlanta, which he stars in and created, and that's fantastic. So he certainly got the chops for it. Let's see if he can deliver something that Lucasfilm and Disney want to do. Fingers crossed he does, and fingers crossed that they do want to do it. That brings an end to our new section. We're going to dive into what we've been watching and consuming Star Wars wise. For me, I did go and watch The Empire Strikes Back in the cinema this past week. As I've been talking about the past few episodes, I've been, this year I've managed to see Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, A New Hope, and now The Empire Strikes Back in cinemas, which has been fantastic. There's a new one each week, so next week will be Return of the Jedi. I've got that booked for Wednesday, I believe. And it's got all the way up to episode 9. So getting to watch these on the big screen is absolutely fantastic. That's pretty much the only Star Wars thing I have consumed this week, was watching The Empire Strikes Back on the big screen. Kat, we haven't spoken in a while sort of about in-depth Star Wars, so just what Star Wars have you been consuming lately, and which bits have been your favourites?
Well, I'm currently trying to become a Jedi Master at university, so I haven't had tons of time to be consuming loads of Star Wars, but I have been finishing off the Darth Vader series by Greg Pak, which just came to an end last month with the 50th issue. I've finished off Star Wars Inquisitors, which was a very interesting take on the Inquisitors and their hunt for the Jedi Tensu run. Felt very mythical, felt almost like a fairy tale in Star Wars, the way it was written. And I've just started the Battle of Jakku, Insurgency Rising, which is the latest comic series from Marvel exploring the time straight after the Battle of Endor, quite like Aftermath and Alphabet Squadron, but this is looking at Grand Moff Adelhard and the Anawat sector, which is inspired by the 2016 Star Wars Uprising game. But this is written by Alex Segura, and the comic is going to be leading up to parts of that Battle of Jakku. So the Imperial remnants still trying to cling on to power, even after the Rebel Alliance has technically won the war. So very exciting comics wise, but haven't had the chance to go to the movies or watch anything Star Wars related. I've been in my Rings of Power era.
Rings of Power era. I hear season 2 is heating up in Rings of Power, but haven't watched it yet. Just a quick question about that new series. Is it Insurgency? Is that correct? Star Wars
Insurgency Rising, yeah.
So, from looking at the pictures of like the first issue, because it's part 1 of a 4-issue series. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's going to be a mini series.
And I've seen Luke Skywalker on the front of some of them. Do we have like the original trilogy main characters involved in these storylines?
We do. The first issue has a very touching moment between Leia talking to her father's pyre and then trying to reconcile her feelings with Luke.
Obviously, as we've seen in further Star Wars literature, how Luke and Leia sort of dealt with the truth about their father very differently. And then obviously you've just talked about the Darth Vader comic book coming to an end at issue 50. Probably don't want to talk spoilers, but just was it a fitting end, and sort of when will we next see Darth Vader in comics, do you think?
I'd like to say it was a fitting end, but I really feel I love Greg Pak as a writer. I've loved all the artists that have contributed to the Vader series. I just feel that I didn't need to be 50 issues. I understand that they were probably aiming to replicate Charles Soule's success with the original Darth Vader 2017 series, which was about the same length. But this story just didn't feel like it needed to be 50 issues. So I've enjoyed many of the issues throughout the series. I don't think this final arc has been the strongest. And I do believe that Marvel actually need to let Darth Vader rest for a while because he's been so prominent in the comics recently that he's starting to lose his impact. The way to write Vader is actually to have him be in the picture as little as possible. You want Vader's impact to be he is this menacing, looming presence just when you don't want him to appear. And I feel that while he can work as a main character, he's just been used too much recently in the comics. He appeared in Star Wars Inquisitors, and I don't think he needed to be there at all. So I would much prefer if Marvel just left Darth Vader alone for a while and came on to completely new stories. Can be new characters, can be return to characters we enjoy and love. And that's what I'm quite excited about with Insurgency Rising is although there's going to be cameos of Leia, of Luke, of Mon Mothma, there's these new Imperial characters like Adelhard who are we just don't know their motivations. We don't know their characters. So there's that excitement when you're reading rather than perhaps a comic series where you know the character quite well and you're trying to figure out what more can a story add to a character that we already know so much about.
Indeed. I think when you talk about Darth Vader, I think less is more, as they say. And, as we've been talking about Star Wars Rebels. Vader certainly has a presence in that show, but he's used lightly and then used for like a big hit and then gets out the way again. So less is more. I think with Vader, I think you're very much right. I think when it comes to these comics, I think like they're renewed for like right, it's a 50 issue run, and then adds up for the writers to sort of plan that out over that time. So maybe they probably haven't had a choice in that from the comics company. And obviously, Darth Vader is certainly a top tier character who sells, but that's when you have the problem of where you're saturating the market and just trying to put more Darth Vader out there, I suppose. You haven't mentioned it, Kat, but considering you are very much a brickhead, hope you don't mind us calling you a brickhead. Did you watch the Rebuild the Galaxy 4-episode miniseries?
Oh my gosh, I did. Oh my gosh, I feel terrible. I totally forgot about that. I loved that series. It was so good. The voice acting was absolutely amazing. I need Kelly Marie Tran as Darth Rose Tico more. I need more of her. And I I just want season two. The way it played out, the brothers at war against each other, the massive stakes, the craziness, Palpatine's a Jedi, Jabba the Hutt's a Jedi. No, I loved it. And it was just the classic Lego humor, beautifully animated. I think that's probably the visually most stunning series they've done so far. And just a really heart tugging story because I was so invested and I wanted there to be sort of a happy ending, and we didn't quite get that.
Indeed. Has there been any announcements, or like are they working on another series, or are you not sure?
I haven't seen an announcement whatsoever, so I don't know if it's been renewed.
And did I see something about is there a new Halloween special coming?
I am not sure. I haven't seen anything. That doesn't necessarily mean there isn't, because I'm stuck in psychology textbooks rather than the Star Wars Newsnet at the moment. I can very easily miss things. I'm shocked I actually know what day of the week it is half the time.
Well, I mean that is the struggles of real life when you've got to try and do real life things to survive and get ahead in life and work hard to move on to sort of really good jobs, but Star Wars is there calling us to watch it. Jason, let's go over to you. Obviously, I'm not sure what you've been consuming since we last spoke about Star Wars, or whether it's any books or rewatching any episodes.
Um, Actually, Rebuild the Galaxy got another rewatching. And yeah, look, I got to echo what Kat said. That for me was a brilliant series. It's left it that I would hope that they're already in production of the second season, because they left it perfectly to bring on another season. And it was just fun. But again, it was a good story. It was, it that is something that sometimes these Lego Star Wars things are a bit of fun, but you just joke after joke. This had a very clear story, and then it built the jokes and the little asides into it. So I'm hoping they're going to do another one. Obviously, there's all the actual kits that they've brought out. So you've got the Dark Millennium Falcon, and you've got Jedi Bob's Starfighter, and you got the X-wing and the TIE fighter that you can mix and match. So I would think if it's successful, Lego will want to carry on with that, and so will Lucasfilm. So fingers crossed on that one. Um, as for anything else, I haven't really. The last couple of weeks, I've been busy doing a lot of other stuff, so I haven't. It's quite comical. I've just seen a really sweet thing. Kat and I have got and you have, Peter, good friend Mark Alders from Jedi News, and he's been going weekly with his daughter to see the films, and he's just put up that they're in seeing Return of the Jedi at the moment. And it was quite comical when we were at Celebration. I don't know if you guys can remember when we had the gift bags that we got from the what was it, the UK Garrison Bash. There was a cuddly toy in there, and I got a cuddly toy Wicket, which I gave to Mark to give to Ember. And I've seen a photo on Facebook. They're sat in the photograph, and there she is clutching Wicket. So I'm really pleased that that's brought a bit of happiness, and that Wicket gets to enjoy watching himself on the screen as well.
No, it is absolutely wonderful. That's the greatest thing about having these movies back in theatre. I think is people who've seen them loads can rewatch them on the big screen with the awesome sound, but also you can take the next generation of Star Wars fans in there to watch them for the first time, which is absolutely fantastic. That brings us into sort of what we've been watching and consuming, and we go into housekeeping. So I had a sort of busy beginning of the week where I was invited onto BBC Radio 2's Midnight Mastermind, hosted by OJ Borg, where I got to quiz him on Star Wars. You only got one of the three questions correctly, but that was a lot of fun. So it's like Monday night going into Tuesday morning, Midnight Radio, a lot of fun. But yes, and if you guys are lucky, I'll have that recording. It'll be on the end of the episode. Or you can just go to BBC Sounds app. You can find the sort of the Monday night, Tuesday morning OJ Borg show. And if you just scroll into sort of 30 minutes into the audio is when the Midnight Mastermind session starts. And what it was I didn't want to just do Star Wars in general because it's such a huge topic. I didn't want to stick to the original trilogy because OJ Borg had actually already done the original trilogy on the original Mastermind series. So I stuck into Star Wars, the prequels, so from 1999 to 2005. And OJ Borg was closer. 1 out of 3 doesn't sound good, but he was close on some of them. But when you're on the spot, it's certainly a tight time. For those who don't know what Midnight Mastermind is, what it is, a guest comes on the show, they tell OJ what the topic's going to be, and then he plays a song. And while the song plays, he sort of is trying to research that topic on the internet. So essentially, I came on after Kylie Minogue's new single was played, and I told him what the topic was, which was Star Wars, the prequel trilogy. He then played Oasis, and he had that song to sort of research the Star Wars prequels. And he came back, and then I asked him the questions. So yes, I was in a nice Kylie Minogue Oasis sandwich, and it was a lot of fun. Jason, any Star Wars housekeeping for you? Been up to much? Been purchasing anything, or got your eyes on anything that you want?
No, I did listen to your episode of the OJ Bork, or the bit that you were on, and it was a lot of fun. Really, really enjoyed it. So hopefully people will hear that. Yeah, no, lots of things I want to purchase. Getting excited about the next series of Star Wars Unlimited. Getting into playing around with that. I found a local group that I can now go and play, so I'm happy there. I've just been looking at all the new Lego kits that came out beginning of the month and everything. I really need to win the Euro Millions very soon, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to get everything that I want. So yeah, at the moment it's just a wish list. Although I know there is one kit that I've got on the way, which I am looking forward to receiving.
Fantastic stuff. Just to clarify, so when I mentioned the Lego Halloween special, what it was I'd just come across sort of Jabba's Halloween Bash on the Star Wars Kids YouTube show, and I think it's up there at the minute to sort of promote the Sail Barge Lego set. So there isn't a new Star Wars Lego Halloween special. So I'm sorry if I got your hopes up on that one. I just glanced at it this week and thought it was maybe that. Kat, we'll go over to you for housekeeping. Anything Star Wars you want to talk about? Have you seen anything Star Wars that you're interested in purchasing?
Well, currently I'm just waiting on all my pre-orders. So my Camilla Funko Pop was supposed to arrive this week, and now it's been pushed back. Funko have changed the release date. But I did get my Cal Kestis vintage collection figure of him in his ISB uniform, which is from the latter part of Jedi Survivor, when you break into the ISB headquarters. And it looks really good. So I'm very happy to have that figure. Carry on my Cal Kestis collection. I would love to get the free pack of Cal in his Inquisitor's uniform with the other Inquisitors, but I am currently waiting for an Amazon deal on that one.
Have you let Cal Kestis breathe yet, or are you keeping him on the card?
Vintage collection figures I keep on the card, because I am not breaking that beautiful cardboard packaging. I can't do it. Black series I take out of their boxes now.
Do you use any protection on your cards? Have you got any like snap cases for them or anything like that?
I am not that fancy. No, they just go up. The cardboard. I don't let sunlight get onto them, but the cardboard is just. I dust them.
Hey, Dustin's important. Dustin's very, very important. I haven't really bought anything recently. I've still got loads of boxes I've bought in the past that I need to open, to be fair. And I've still got quite a lot of packs of Star Wars Unlimited Shadows of the Galaxy to open as well. That brings an end to this week's episode. Jason, any closing thoughts, and where can the people find you on social media?
Just carry on enjoying everything and get ready for the countdown to Skeleton Crew, because then we'll have something else to watch and talk about. And as always, it's at Hondo Ling.
Kat, any closing Star Wars thoughts, and where can the people find you on social media?
Just remember to always be a positive and respectful Star Wars fan. And you can find me at CatKylo on Twitter, where I'm always happy to talk anything Star Wars, Lego, or Kylo Ren.
And you can find myself on Twitter, or now known as X, and Instagram at Geordie Jedi Pete. You can also find the podcast on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Boars Star. And you can also find the podcast on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, loads of other places, TikTok, at Star Wars Podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Music, please leave us a top review. A lovely 5 stars and a lovely sentence keeps us smiling all week. Only takes you a few moments. And again, if you're listening on any of the other wonderful podcast applications out there, and it has a feature to review the show, leave us a top review, as many stars as you can. A nice little sentence, again, keeps us smiling all week. Only takes you a few moments, and it does help people find the show Also, stay tuned. We are launching our Patreon very soon. The page is up there now. So it's just patreon.com/Starwars. There's a nice little character bio on myself and Jason up there, and there's more to come from the rest of the crew. And then we'll also be doing monthly exclusive episodes on Patreon as well, which will be coming soon as well. So stay tuned for more information on that. That's the end of the episode. May the Force be with you all. And remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.
Now, Midnight Mastermind.
Right, then, another week from me of answering your questions on your specialist subject. Very little prep time. Last week I got a 3 and then the triple-double, which is just confusing for all of us. But we'll see how we go with a new week of new subjects. Let's see who's asking the questions. By saying, good morning, what be thy name?
My name's Pete.
Pete, where are you in the world?
Newcastle.
Lovely. Are we talking Newcastle in the northeast or Newcastle upon Lyme?
Newcastle in the northeast.
Yeah. Best thing you've done so far this month?
This month I've been enjoying a couple of Horlicks and I've been catching up on some Star Wars news at JediNews.com.
All right. I reckon then I might be able to have a guess that it's something from a galaxy far, far away that our specialist subject is from this morning.
You are very right.
What is it? What are we doing? Star Wars in general, or is there a specific part of it?
So we're going to narrow it down to Star Wars, the prequel trilogy. So that is the 3 movies from 1999 to 2005.
What do you feel about the prequels? Because a lot of my Star Wars nerdy friends don't dig the prequels.
I think it's a generational thing. I was sort of a Star Wars fan between the trilogies. I call myself a tweener, so
Yeah.
I started watching Star Wars sort of in the early 90s. Basically because my older cousin had them on VHS and he had them on and it sort of captivated me. So I'd already seen Star Wars on VHS and I'd seen the original trilogy when it was re-released in 1997 as the special editions.
Yeah.
So by the time 1999 came around and The Phantom Menace came out, I was sort of 11, 12. Probably the perfect age for it. And I love the Star Wars prequels.
Exactly that. Because when they came out, all of my friends would be like, oh, these aren't as good as the originals. And I was like, actually, they're not bad. And then when you have kids, because I'm probably a bit older than you, when you have kids, then you're like, well, these are perfect for the kids because like the original 3 are quite dark in a way, and these ones were perfect for kids. It was a great way to get more people involved. Anyway, I need to do some research. Let me play a song and then 3 questions on the Star Wars prequels after this. And as the rules state, when the song stops, the research stops. Let me shut down this prequel trilogy fact sheet I was just reading, because it's Peter on Newcastle on Time asking me these questions about the prequel trilogy, which was 99 to 05. And you sort of said it before, Peter, but why this? Why this subject?
I've been a Star Wars fan since I was about 4 years old, and I've got my own Star Wars podcast. I'm quite obsessed with Star Wars, should we say, and happy to talk Star Wars with anyone.
Well, it's called what? What's the podcast called?
Star Wars.
Love that. You see, I like it as well. Did you know that I did do Celebrity Mastermind on Star Wars?
I did.
Yeah, but I did it on the first 3 films, not the prequels. Although I did start to dip my toe into it at the time. The thing with all of these are that the world is so massive when you start getting into it.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. I mean, Star Wars is nearly 50 years old soon. It'll be coming up to, so
50. That makes me feel old. Well, let me set the mood.
Midnight Mastermind.
Which I've now done, Peter. We're in good hands with you. 3 questions on the Star Wars prequels. Take it away. Radio 2 is yours.
Question number 1. 2 actors portrayed Anakin Skywalker in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. Can you name one of them?
I can. Hayden Christensen played the older Anakin Skywalker. I was just trying to think who played the younger one, and I don't think I know his name.
It is Jake Lloyd.
But do I get it right because I got one of them?
You do indeed.
Whee! Taking that first point. Right, let's go question 2.
Question number 2. Christopher Lee plays Jedi Count Dooku, who turned to evil. What name did the Sith Lord then go by?
Count Dooku, the Sith Lord. So he had a different name. I don't remember him having a different name. I always thought he was known as Count Dooku.
So Count Dooku was his Jedi name.
Right. And then he had a
when he
name.
becomes a Sith Lord, he takes a Sith name.
I'm gonna. Oh, I don't think it is this because I think this is the naughty name of the Emperor. Darth Sidious.
You're right, as in that is the Sith name of the Emperor.
Oh, what is
not
it?
Count Dooku, I'm afraid.
What was he?
He was Darth Tyrannus.
Oh, do you know? I did actually know that as well. Okay, well, the full house is on. Let's see if I can get another 2 out of 3. Final question.
Can you name the 3 planets we visit in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace?
Tatooine.
Yep.
I don't know if they go to the planet in this. Camino.
Incorrect, I'm afraid.
Oh, I don't. Coruscant.
Correct.
Oh, no, but I've not got the third one. What's the third one?
I'll give you a clue. It's the first planet we go to in this movie.
Endor.
Incorrect, I'm afraid.
Oh, what is it?
It is Naboo.
Oh, Naboo! Put the booze into Naboo. The booze are for me, by the way, not for you. Mate, great questions. Really, really good Star Wars pop quiz questions. It's a 1 out of 3. I'm very disappointed in myself. Obviously, people listening to your podcast, what are you talking about in the next couple of episodes?
So we're just breaking down some of the Star Wars news. You'll be surprised just how much Star Wars news there is, actually. So there's a lot of new Star Wars comics coming in. Of course, there's a brand new Star Wars TV series coming to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Skeleton Crew in December.
Ooh, that's supposed to be good, isn't it?
It's looking good. So we'll be talking our first thoughts on that. We've had some pictures released of Jude Law as the main character. So very exciting times.
I think it'll be very good. Check out Star Wars, which is Peter's podcast, all about Star Wars with in-depth discussions and analysis. Thank you so much, mate. I enjoyed that. I didn't do terribly well, but I enjoyed it nevertheless.
Thank you very much, and may the Force be with you.
Yay! Same to you, buddy. I'd try and reply in some sort of Jar Jar Binks, but I think I won't do that. Cheers, Peter. There you go. 1 out of 3.
My baby wanna